I shit you not, this is like the 5th fucking time I've started recording. This is the 5th fucking time. For some reason, I'm stuttering on my words and I'm just fucking everything up. Anyways, this is Elantris part 2. I'm going to start where I left off and I'm going to continue talking about the book. I'm not going to go too in depth because in the matter, I don't know what word I'm thinking of, but a lot of time has passed, so I don't quite remember all the plot points that I originally had in mind when I was talking about Elantris. I don't remember the specifics. I do remember the major plot points, and I remember some of the twists, but I don't remember every twist. So I'm going to talk rather vaguely about the book. I'm going to bring up some heavy spoilers, just so you know. I'm also going to talk about some events that I did and didn't like, and I'm going to break it apart a little bit, but I'll try not to make it too long. So I'm going to start off where I left, and that's talking about Serena. I really like Serena as a character, as a main character, as a female lead, and as a female character, pretty much. They're very competently written. Serena, she's a very strong woman, and I really like that about her as a main lead. I haven't read a lot of books with female main characters, mostly because I'm a guy and maybe it's internalized misogyny, who knows, I can't say, or maybe it's because I empathize a lot more with men because I am a man. But be it what it is, I haven't haven't written either, but haven't read a lot of books with female leads. That being said, this was probably one of my favorites. Why? I'll get to that in just a bit. First, let me talk about something else very briefly. I won't go on a tangent, but I've read the first, second, and I'm reading part of the 3rd book for the Mistborn series. And, the Mistborn series has a female protagonist, at least the first part. I haven't read, keep saying written, fucking hell. I'm gonna get mad if I keep making these fucking mistakes, you piece of shit little baby boy. Fuck you. I don't have anger issues. I think I'm just a little bit frustrated, just a tiny bit. Anyways, I've read 1st, 2nd, and a part of the 3rd book for the Mistborn series. And it has a female lead. I think it's famous for having a female lead. The book, however, is very 2000s, if you get what I'm saying. I feel like when I read parts of the Mistborn series, the energy that the main character gives is kind of, and I don't mean this in the most derogatory way, it just has that feeling, but she gives me very pick-me vibes. And I don't mean like pick-me as in she's doing it on purpose to appeal to the male audience or something like that. It's almost like it's a character written in that pick-me-ish like area vibe, right? And I don't know how else to explain it. Maybe it's because of my own perception that it's skewing the way I read the story, but it just gives off that vibe, And she's a really well-written character, and it's not like she does things for the sake of male attention. That's not at all the thing. Like the main character for the Mistborn, and for some reason it's not coming to me, no wait, that's from League of Legends. Vin. There we go. See, I remember things. Anyways, Vin is a really well-written character too, and she has her moments where I really empathize with her, but it just reads very 2000s in a kind of not that complex way. I feel like there's several times where the characters could have been more complex, but the thing is, a lot of the characters are extremely complex. They're not one-sided, and it's what makes the Mistborn series really good, apart from its power system, the action, stuff like that. Anyways, I'm getting a little bit off topic though. What I meant to say is Vin is a really good character, and she does a really good job of being a lead, but at times she feels a little bit flat. She's kind of like I'm not like other girls, but not in a way that she's doing it on purpose for male attention, like I said before, but she doesn't feel as rich or complex as I feel that Serena does in the Elantris book. I feel like In Elantris, Serena knows her shortcomings. She knows how other people may perceive her, and she uses that as an advantage to manipulate others and have an advantage over others. She uses the disadvantages in order to gain a political hold inside this foreign country, this foreign kingdom that she wasn't previously a part of, in order to thwart the plans of, the enemy of their ally. I forget what the kingdom's name is, but if you watch the last part, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Sorry, I'm a little bit itchy, so I'm gonna scratch myself. Anyways, Serena is a really good character because she knows her limits, and even though she doesn't think it's a bad thing. She just learns to use them in a way that benefits her. And that's what makes her such a compelling character. She's real, she's vulnerable, she's not all powerful, unlike Vin, who sometimes does feel like almost invincible, like she can't be thwarted, because in the end she always wins in some sort of way. But Serena, she's very grounded. She doesn't have these power like Vin does in the Mistborn series. And that's what makes her so compelling. Her shortcomings, her weaknesses, and how she uses those at an advantage. Serena's parts are one of my more favorite parts of the books because it is an interesting character to read about. I want to see how she progresses through the story. I want to see how she's able to get more of a political grasp on everyone in the kingdom. I want her to rise to power and have a place that she built on her own without the influence of her father or any other guy or man. Like, this is all her doing. It's her strength, her intelligence that led her to this position, and I really like that. I feel like it talks a lot about how it's difficult for women to find power, and especially to have political influence, especially when the men around them don't think that women are competent enough to be anything but like what they perceive to be women. It's interesting to see Serena, garner this power in a kingdom where men often associate women as being lesser. Something that a lot of women may find rather familiar, even in today's era, even in today's workplaces. Sometimes it just feels like you aren't given the appreciation or the respect that you deserve simply because you are a woman, even if you are competent. And I think Serena does a good job of representing that, but also in a kind of 2000s way. Like, she is that bitch, but it's not far-fetched. It feels natural to some extent, as natural as it could be. Roden, on the other hand, I also like because of the whole dilemma of him trying to figure out just Elantrians in general. He was taken by the Shroud, and he's in this city. He doesn't know shit. He's trying to find his way. He's trying to make his own life in this rotten, torn down city. He's trying to make life inside of Elantris better, when a lot of people have simply just given up and decided, fuck it, we ball. I'll just wait here until I lose my mind because I just don't want to think about it. And honestly, same. I would do the same. But Roden isn't happy with that, and he wants to make a difference. He wants to make a change. He wants to figure out why. He wants to make things better when everyone else has given up. And I think that's really, really, really cool. I think the idea that once you injure yourself, it doesn't heal, and you just feel that perpetual sharpness of pain that you first felt when that was inflicted upon you is a very fascinating concept that I think I've never seen ever illustrated in a book, and which is what hooked me in the first place. It's like, you're not dead, you're not technically alive, at least it doesn't feel like it, and anything you sustain is just perpetually inflicted upon you. That would make me go fucking insane. Like, if I stub my toe and the first sensation I feel when I stub my toe, that sharp pain, was just perpetually on my toe, I feel like I would go fucking insane, personally. I don't know about you guys, maybe you're built different. I feel like half of you are not. No shade to you, I just don't think so. But I think that's really cool. That's an interesting topic, that's an interesting plot device that I was very interested to see unfold in the rest of the story. I haven't read a book like this, and so when it was introduced to me at first, it was fascinating, and even by the end of it, it was fascinating. Eventually, Roden does find out what the issue is with the Elantris, what happened. I'll get to that a little bit later, but I think that whole plot point was fascinating, and him trying to figure out the issue was also really fascinating. It did, however, get dull at the very end of it. Mostly because most of the story, when we switch to Rodin's point of view, is him trying to figure out the reason, but it just kind of gets stale when we're like 80%, 90% done with a book. We're like at this point, and Rodin's still in his books, in his fucking library, trying to figure out why. And at that point, it's kind of like, honestly, I don't even think I care anymore. Like, it's cool, I do, but I just wish it didn't focus so much on that. Like, if it was like kind of behind the scenes where it's like Rodin's like taking so much time to figure out what the issue is with the Elantrians and everything, I would be cool. Because there's aspects inside where he's studying, he's trying to figure out the reason as to why they're like this. And then there's parts where it cuts to him being a leader when he's trying to rebuild the city to make it more habitable, to give people hope. And I like that aspect more. Maybe it's because I've read a lot of stories, or correction, I've read a lot of manga and manhwa where it's basically like city builders, and I like that aspect. The leader doing leading shit, the leader doing political shit. I like that. It's fascinating. It involves a lot of complexity. I like the idea of having to take this broken down city and make it a place where people can live, of facing these difficulties and overcoming them. That's very fascinating to me. What's not fascinating to me is when Rodin is in the 5th chapter, right? And he's like, he was studying very hard, trying to figure out what the issue is with the Elantrians. And it just keeps repeating the same thing about like, I don't get why this isn't working, or I've tried this, I've tried that, I keep looking at books and this, and that's fine and dandy. But I'd prefer if that was left on the sidelines instead of making it like entire chapters or entire aspects of the book. Like hinting at it here and there that he's working on it in the midst of everything else, I feel would have made the story a little bit more interesting, because it just got a little bit annoying, especially at the end game of the book. Now, Hranth, however the fuck you pronounce it, I found very compelling because of his religious beliefs. At one point in the story, he starts to heavily, think, or maybe just criticize, just contemplate about his religious beliefs and where it fits in all of this. He starts to contemplate the end goal of his kingdom, and at the very end, and big spoiler here, he ends up sort of kind of betraying his own kingdom, but not really, because of Serena, because apparently enemies to lovers plot device. I kind of saw that coming at the beginning of the book. I saw a lot of the plot twists coming. Some of them I didn't, actually. Some of them surprised me. They really surprised me. The enemies to lovers I did see, but I was like, nah, I just don't see it kind of unfolding. At least I don't see Serena getting in love with Hranth, and that's mostly because it just would feel very kind of like smutty, kind of like like I found no sense into it. But that didn't really happen. Serena never caught any feelings for Hranth. It was mainly Hranth finding feelings for Serena, or realizing that he had feelings because of their whole dynamic of trying to thwart and just be better than the other person. But it was never like Serena and Hranth had a thing for each other. It was more like a one-sided thing. And I think it's because Hranth liked the idea of someone, challenging his intellect, his authority. She saw him as an equal, or he saw her as an equal, and he found that very attractive. And in the end, he like had feelings for her, eventually sacrificing himself for her in like one of the big climaxes. And so I just really like Hranth's character because he felt very rich and complex. Because yes, he was in a lot of ways evil and he did a lot of shit, but he wasn't like an entirely evil person. He had feelings, he had complexity to him, he had doubts, and he was confident and he wanted to pursue his purpose. But he still felt a certain way about doing certain things, but he still did it for a sense of duty. And I really like that about his character. He was complex, he was religious, and he didn't go through that atheist route where I feel like it's too simplistic. As a fellow atheist, it feels very shallow for religious characters to just then be like, I don't believe in religion anymore because of this, because of all this horribleness. It feels very unfaithful. It feels very like, I'm an atheist and you should believe like me, or some shit like that. Like, atheism isn't the solution to everything. Nihilism doesn't have to be the solution, right? You can still feel, what's it called? You can still feel a certain way about certain aspects about religion while still being in the religion and still being faithful. And I think that's rather important. Don't sell people who have faith short. Don't just, obliterate their beliefs just because of something that didn't, go exactly as planned, or, because there's certain things that they may not agree with in their said religion. I feel like that's very shallow. That's very I feel like a lot of people do that when they don't understand the depths of how beautiful and complex religious can be, beliefs, faith. It's like, it's more than just, shit, I can't really agree with this. I guess that's it. It's more complex than that. And I like characters that have internal strife and that battle with their emotions. And especially like it when in the end they're still able to find a middle ground where it's like, yes, I don't completely agree with all of it, but I still love it. It's still a part of me. I still have that faith, and that is beautiful. That is very well executed, and I really, really like that. Now, all these characters in unison made for an incredibly compelling and complex story. It felt like reading 3 stories that were slowly culminating into one. It was interesting seeing how these characters interacted with each other in such a rich world. Like, it was, the world building was really interesting. There was a lot of aspects that I wanted to know about, some of which weren't elaborate on, especially like the Sion thing. If you know, I feel like they could have talked about that a little bit more. It felt weird that they didn't treat them like people when they were practically people, but it's the whole cultural thing in the world, so I don't really question it that much, but I felt like they should have elaborated a little bit more on that. I will say though that going back on the Hranth and the Serena enemies to lover thing, I didn't like that. Honestly, I didn't really like too much how Hranth caught feelings for Serena. I felt like that was very cliche. I kind of predicted it, but I was hoping that wasn't the case, like I said, and it happened. So, I can't really do anything about that. And in the end, I think it was very compelling, and I like how Hranth never told Serena, and that Serena was rather confused as to why Hranth would even sacrifice himself for her. She didn't really understand why. She was just like, I'm just happy to be alive. And you know what? I kind of like it that way. I kind of like that he didn't really push his feelings onto her, because to Serena, he was just an enemy. He was just like someone she was trying to thwart, because she know that the kingdom that he presides from, and he knows that Yorns are like malicious and always have negative intentions. And maybe that's a little bit racist now that I think about it, or I don't know if that would be racist. I feel like that would be some sort of ist, but you get what I mean, right? And I thought that was very compelling, because like Hranth, I think, understood that to some extent, that she would never know, or that she would ever find him attractive like he did, and he kind of accepted that, and he did what he could to show his affection to her, by sacrificing himself. That was his noble way of not pushing his feelings onto her, but still showing those feelings. And I thought that was very beautiful in a way. I don't really like everything about this whole like relationship in the last part. I mean, there wasn't really a relationship, but you know what I mean. But I did like the ending a little bit, just a tiny bit. I think it was very fascinating. Apart from that, though, I did like one part in the story where Rodin kind of gets fucked at the end. Later down the story, we find out that there's a lake located near Elantris where they can put people who have like practically lost their mind to the shroud because of the pain. They just can't handle it anymore. They can put them in this sort of lake. And when they put them in this lake, they're able to kill themselves. Elantris can't really die, right? Well, this lake allows them to die, but you have to be willing to let yourself go. So, for example, if you just fall into it, oopsie daisy, shit, I fucking slipped in the acid, you won't die unless you want to die. And that makes for a really compelling, like, narrative because they don't really tell anyone about this, even though to some extent they should. Like, there's an ethical dilemma, a moral dilemma to this situation, but they don't tell anyone. They keep it a secret. And I don't exactly remember why, but they do. In the later part of the story, Rodin gets fucked. He gets skewered because they capture Serena and they, threaten to kill her if he doesn't show up and if he doesn't pop out. And so he does, and, scabbard to the chest. That was one of the most interesting parts of the story because I genuinely did not expect it, and I really believed he was gonna die, even though a part of me knew he was probably gonna come back to some point. But his best friend and the day one homie that was with him when he first got to Elantris carried him, and there was this monologue that he had that was so fascinating, where it was like, you gave me hope, you gave me aspirations, you gave me these delusions, only for you to do exactly what I thought would happen. To give me false hope, to make me understand the feeling of being destroyed because I had hope, I had aspirations, and then it failed, it crumbled at my very feet. You did this to me, but you are still my friend. And there was this such a beautiful part, like dialogue that they had, where it was like, you did all this, you gave us hope, you gave us a city, and then you threw it all away for a girl you met. And that was so heavy because I understand his perspective, and I didn't expect that sort of complexity from a character that although he was complex, I didn't expect that sort of dialogue, that complexity in the narrative, because in stories often you sacrifice yourself for the girl you love or the person you love, and it's like, I had to do it because I love them, but we never really get the other person's perspective, the person that they were with the entire time. Like, you sacrificed all of this for something you just barely knew. And I thought that was really beautiful. But, he brings him up to this lake, throws him in there, and then there was this moment where he starts to lose consciousness and starts to accept death. And I thought that was a really compelling part of the story because I really thought he might die. Of course he didn't. Eventually he just got back up and it was like, I realize what the problem is with the magic. I know what to do. And eventually it was because of like a ravine that popped up in the actual like city or like the continent itself, because apparently the magic, when you draw it, it's supposed to represent the continent. So when you first draw it, you have to draw like a map of sorts, and then you draw the symbols around it, and then it makes magic and shit like that. But for some reason they didn't really think to add the big ass ravine that appeared in the continent, and so that was the reason why it didn't want to work. Eventually he realized that as he was losing consciousness, as he was about to fade into the dark, he got back up. His homie was like, oh shit, what the fuck? And he was like slowly losing like his self as he was trying to get down the mountain, and he got to the end like in this square, and he drew the ravine and the magic circle, and then they become sort of like demigods and everything. And then it's like they try to get back Serena. I didn't, and I thought that part was a little bit cliche because honestly, the main characters got so fucked that I kind of wanted them to lose at the end. I felt like it was very like hero story-esque that he was able to get back from this, what was essentially obliteration. And I was like, okay, I felt like this was cliche. I felt like it would have been a better story if he didn't figure out the reason to Elantris and he just died there. I feel like it would have been a little bit more compelling if it was a much more devastating story. and like I felt like it could have gone better, like it could have been better, you know. And Hank did have like a conversation with one of his apprentices that he had with him like throughout the story that was very compelling and very interesting. I won't spoil that part. I feel like you wouldn't need to read that, but it was very complex and I really enjoyed that conversation too. Also big plot twist in that aspect, but I feel like that part was a bit cliche, and I also didn't like the whole. There was this one character who it was clearly hinted that he had like a sort of mental disability. I speculate it was autism that they were trying to represent in this kid. It was part of Serena's family, his uncle's son, although they didn't really talk about him. In fact, they almost exclusively excluded him from the story, and most of the time he was in the story, it felt kind of fucking random as shit as to why he even existed in the plot, because they didn't acknowledge him at all, except for the few times in the beginning where he was like, oh yeah, he just kind of fucking does what he does. We don't really think about him, we ignore him. And I was like, okay, I don't really like that. And then in the end of the story, we find out that he was secretly an Elantrian and they were just putting makeup on his ass. And so that's why he was a little bit, not very, like, neurotypical. But it just felt like a kind of a cop-out answer, because when they all get their, like, god powers back and everyone is, like, on the brink of dying and then comes back, he gets his, like, intelligence back, and he was like, yeah, I was kind of in this limbo state where I wasn't really, like, fully there, and, like, part of me was trying to be a Elantrian and part of me wasn't. Like, it felt like they tried to cure his, like, mental disability, kind of like curing his autism, which I felt very, like, icky a little bit. It felt like, why make this character almost feel like it was trying to represent a mental disability and then just kind of cure him of it, and then make him a vital plot point for Ronan to then try to save Serena? Because, like, he used to, like, when he was in Elantrian form, he would, like, count his steps, and he memorized the exact amount of steps from here to the next kingdom because of, like, a trip he took, I believe. And, like, he used that in order to teleport to the other kingdom and save Serena. And, like, if he didn't do it right, he would fucking die. And I felt like, where did this come from? You have never been relevant, not even once into the story. And I felt really weird for you to be even included in the story. And now you're a major plot point. Like, I felt like that was bad storytelling. I felt like that was bad storytelling and a bad character. And, like, it felt random in a not, like, really good story building way, because there was a lot of aspects in the story that I felt that were integrated to add complexity to the world building, but this in specific just felt fucking random as shit, and I didn't like it, and I didn't like the outcome of it. I felt like they should have done a better job at representing what they were trying to represent, if that's what they were going for. And if not, I feel like I feel like I was kind of misconstrued, but maybe that's because I was jumping to conclusions, who knows. But apart from that, I feel like the story itself was really well written. The characters, especially the main characters, were really well written. Their dynamics was really well written. The interaction between Serena and Rodan and them, like, falling in love, even though they were, like, technically arranged to fall in love, they still had some sort of interest in each other and they were fascinated with each other. It was interesting seeing Serena try to escape Rodan's shadow, because, like, Rodan was like this sort of figure in this kingdom. He was trying to build things up, but it took him years and years to build this political influence. And Serena felt so, like, oppressed by his shadow. Like, everywhere she went, they would talk about his, like, husband, like, oh, you should have met him, he was so great, he was so, like, this, he was perfect in every sort of way. And Serena felt kind of disheartened because he was like, well, he's not here anymore, you know, I'm here and I'm trying to pick the pieces back together. And it's like, I get he was probably a great person, but I want to be seen for me, not as the wife, the widow of my dead husband. Eventually they figure out he's not dead and he comes back, and, you know, there's this whole reunion and everything. But Serena is able to amass such a political, like, such a influence in the political atmosphere in this kingdom in such a short while that it's impressive but not unrealistic. And I think that's really cool. I think that's really okay. So, recording once again. So, like I was saying, I'm just gonna keep recording. My fucking camera turned off because it was overheating, but I don't give a fuck. I'm just gonna finish it anyways because I'm almost done anyways. So I really like the fact that Serena was able to amass such a big political influence in such a short amount of time. And even Ronan pointed it out, because he was like, I did this with years of trying to build these people, bring these people together, and you were able to accomplish what I could, but you did it in such a short amount of time. And yes, maybe it was because of the circumstances were dire and there needed to be action, but still, nonetheless, you were able to prove yourself as a leader and as a person who's competent. You were able to do so much in such a little amount of time that it is nothing short of impressive. Don't sell yourself short. And I think that was a really important conversation, and I really like that, because even I didn't really think about it all that much until he brought it up, and I was like, oh my god, he's right. Like, Serena did all of this by herself as a person from a foreign country. That's nothing short of impeccable, but it didn't feel unrealistic because we were able to go through it with Serena, and we were able to figure out how she accomplished all of this, and it didn't feel like it was some sort of magical feat. It felt completely grounded. Some aspects were a little bit, stretched out, but it didn't feel like weird. It didn't feel like off. It felt natural, and that's what's important. And it's aspects like these in the story that makes it really good, because like the dialogue, some of the dialogue that I've read in Elantris just felt so rich and beautiful, and felt like it was a conversation between actual people and not just from people in stories. It felt like people who had opinions, who had beliefs, who had emotions, and that's what makes a good story. And that's why I really liked Elantris. There are a lot of aspects that I felt could have been better. There are some aspects I felt could have been just completely, removed from the story, and it would have made it better. But there's so much of this story that I just love, that I just can't see myself giving this anything lower than an 8. 8 to 9.5 is probably what I would give this story, because it was so good. I recommend this book 100% to anyone who's interested in even sort of getting into fantasy, or even Brandon Sanderson's in general. There's some beautiful writing. It's a short book-ish, kind of. It's like 600 pages, but it's condensed very well. It's you don't have to read an entire series like in the Mistborn series, and I feel like as a starter, this is really good. I haven't read a lot of fantasy, but this definitely got me hooked into the genre. And honestly, if you're contemplating getting it, I definitely recommend it 100%. Probably one of my favorites. Gonna put it in my that one list that you have for people who are arrogant and fucking shitty about how many books they've read. I forget what it's called, but yeah, it's just good. And I can go on and on about this, but I want to keep this shorter than my previous video, so you know what, I'll leave it at that. If you want to know more about it, read it, but I'll leave it here. And in the next one, I'll talk about the Mistborn series when I finish it, or if I just get lazy or just feel innovative and feel like talking about it. But if you enjoyed this video, then subscribe, come back again. Maybe don't. I don't give a fuck. Go somewhere else, shit. If you don't want to like and subscribe, fuck you. Do something else. I don't know. Be productive. I'm kidding. Do whatever the fuck you want. But, if you want to come back, come back. If you don't, don't. But I really enjoy talking about books. I enjoy talking about a bunch of shit. I probably won't just talk about books, but that's probably going to be my main focus anyways, because I just like blabbering. I like talking about shit. Maybe I'll talk about philosophy next time. Who knows? I got like this Buddha book that I bought on Barnes & Noble. I got a shit ton of stack of books over here that I haven't gotten to, so I might talk about that. Or maybe talk about like some art shit that I'm doing. You see my fucking wall. I draw on my wall. That makes me interesting. Maybe I'll just record myself drawing on the wall. But like I said, come back if you want to. Don't come back. But I enjoy talking to you, and until next time, bye.